Cheers.
Yeah. My my cousin. I decided. I invited my cousin Jonathan. We got three Jonathans here. We got Jonathan Hopkins, Jonathan Hobart, and Jonathan. Do you pronounce the H in your last name?
No.
Okay,
Uh,
so it's Holiff.
uh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Last name. Um, you remember my email address? It says Hall of Fame at Gmail.
Yeah,
So like Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. Yeah, I. That's really creative. I like that.
So Holiff. Hi, Jonathans.
Howdy.
Yeah, he's get. We got you up on the display. We had some technical problems last night, so I was up till about 3 a.m. setting up the monitors. So I appreciate your patience.
No worries. How's my picture on your end?
Good.
Looks decent. I like your stage. What are you doing?
Oh, it's just a background.
Okay. Oh yeah, I can tell now. All right. So Jonathan Hopkins here. He's a huge Johnny Cash fan.
I am.
Like,
Cheers.
yeah. And we met. When did we meet? Just about a month ago or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I think my cousin Jonathan. He'll join when he's ready. So we can just get started. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No
Um,
worries.
so my name's Trevor Lane. I'm the arts director here at the Vault in Valley City, and founder of Valley City Arts and Entertainment. And I just kind of brushed up on you mostly this morning and last night, so you got to forgive me there. I watched the interviews that you had and filmmaking, and Jonathan Hopkins here is the big fan, so I'll let him talk if you have any questions.
Thanks, Trevor.
Yep.
Yeah, love your movie, by the way, the My Father and the Man in Black.
Thanks.
And I took it kind of a little bit of notice when you mentioned Walk the Line, the movie. So
Yeah.
one of the first ones I kind of want to ask is, if you had to choose anyone to who have portrayed your father, Saul, in that movie, who would it have been? Out of curiosity.
Wow. And that's a great question that I don't think I've ever been asked. I'd have to give that some thought. Um, but he'd be good looking. That's for sure.
I have some questions too. So, um, you made the My Father and the Man in Black. It took you 7 years to make that movie.
Yeah, in fact, that's not necessarily very long in the world of documentary filmmaking, especially first person stories. It
Mm,
was a lot of work, a lot of research before we even, rolled film.
wow. Um, and is it's based off your dad. So unfortunately, he killed himself in 2005,
Yeah,
2 years after Johnny Cash died.
right.
Can you explain a little bit about the like what you went through and what kind of effect that had on you?
Sure. Let me preface this by saying that while he did take his own life, he did so because his quality of life was going down, and it was a decision he made. This was in 2005, and just a couple of years later in Canada, where we live, a new law came into being allowing for assisted suicide, medically assisted suicide
Wow.
under various circumstances, and that's what he would have done had he been alive today with the help of a doctor. But yeah, he chose to end his life when he did. But even so, it came as a huge shock.
Mm,
He and I had been estranged for several years. I was living in Los Angeles. He was living on Vancouver Island, Canada. And one day the phone rang, and my mother informed me that he had offed himself. But what was more traumatizing, if you will, was that he didn't leave his kids a note. So I was kind of left holding the bag in that sense. And as a consequence, I decided to go home to Vancouver Island to look in on my mother. And that's when I just stumbled upon his storage locker, which contained a wealth of information on Johnny Cash, and more importantly, 60 hours of audio diaries and recorded phone calls with Cash.
Wow. So that's kind of just a gold mine.
Yeah, it really was, especially for a son who just lost his father. I think anybody can relate to a death in the family where you're left with a lot of questions and no answers. So ever since that experience, which, if you saw the film, was clearly a cathartic one for me. I tell people, make up with your parents before it's too late, because you're unlikely to find a storage locker full of audio diaries that will tell you all about that person, before he was your dad or she was your mother.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And reconciliation, that's something that's really been heavy on my list the last few years. I mean, I've had it out with my family and friends so many times, and just really challenging myself to forgive and really get to the root of the problem is just powerful stuff. And I'm sure he struggled with addiction, maybe.
Yes, to the extent that he was always a heavy drinker, but no other, not drugs or things of that nature.
Okay. I have a few more questions if
Sure.
Hopkins, you want to say a few things?
One of the others I kind of had an idea of was you kind of touched a little bit when it came to the movie of your father and Johnny and their difference in religion. Mind kind of going a little bit more into that?
Sure. If you had to find a place where the story comes to an end, it's when Johnny Cash was born again. It was 1972. They had just, survived the 1960s, drugs and arrests and scandals, and they were finally making money and enjoying the success they worked so hard for. And Cash made a U turn at that point. He decided he wanted to follow up Folsom Prison, for example, with an album of original songs about Jesus. And, my dad's job was to look after Johnny's career, to uh, strategize and ensure his success. And he was concerned that Johnny might lose his audience, that hard won audience he captured like magic at Folsom Prison. And as the years went by, the next couple of years went by, and Johnny became more involved with Billy Graham's Crusades, for example.
Really?
Um, the two men started to become at odds once again. In the 60s, it was over drugs and scandals. In the 70s, it was over ideology. And it was capped off by a film that Johnny wrote and produced and directed in Israel, originally called A Gospel Road, Walking in the Footsteps of Jesus. And curiously, he cast my father in the movie in the role of Caiaphas, purportedly the Jewish judge that had something to do with the death of Jesus. And that's where the story really took on Shakespearean proportions. Bottom line is, my father was an atheist. He didn't get all that stuff, and it wasn't good for business. And he basically saw the writing on the wall that Johnny's career had peaked. And he was right. As you know, for the next 20 years, Johnny went straight downhill career wise and was kind of wandering in the desert. And if it hadn't been for Rick Rubin and it hadn't been for the movie Walk the Line, uh, Johnny Cash wouldn't have enjoyed the biggest comeback in music industry history.
That's amazing. Hopkins was just talking about that right before we started. He's a big history buff, and that's one reason we got talking. Um, so yeah, is the Gospel Roads. Um, that's just amazing stuff. I also forgot to mention your dad. His name is Saul Hoffert, and he was
Saul,
Johnny
Saul
Holiff. Sorry, there's oh yeah, there's four Jonathans. There's Johnny
Right.
Cash, John Hopkins, John Hobart, and John Holiff. Wow. Um, so yeah, do you have any more questions, Hopkins?
Another one I kind of was a bit wondering on is like what was the biggest influence he had on Johnny, your dad?
Well, Johnny would say, and indeed wrote in letters, that he credited my father with helping develop Johnny's interest in reading. Um, and my father, by the way, before he managed Johnny Cash, he was a concert promoter and specialized in rock and roll, Bill Haley and the Comets and the Everly Brothers and things like that. And he was an entrepreneur. He owned a number of different small businesses. He had a drive-in restaurant, which is where he first met Cash. He had written into his contract when he hired Cash to perform a concert in Canada that after the concert he would go to Saul's restaurant to sign autographs, and that's where they sort of became friends. But he also had a clothing store, and he basically designed Johnny and the band's original costumes, or at least those costumes in the late 1950s. But in terms of music history, Saul is credited with convincing Johnny to switch producers to Bob Johnson. And it was Bob Johnson who opened the doors to Folsom Prison. And of course, Saul is also well known among Cash fans as the guy who hired June Carter and put her with Johnny.
That's man, I love history. I was just looking at other questions here. So, when you were making the movie My Father and the Man in Black, who played Johnny Cash? Or not Johnny Cash? Who played your dad? I mean,
Oh, that's an interesting question, because a lot of people find that those actors look so much like my father. It was scary. And the reason why they look so much like him is because they were played by my brother and my cousin. My brother Josh played my father at age 40, and my cousin Gary played my father at age 50. The film covers, of course, the mid 50s through the mid 1970s. So we had to have, a couple of different Sauls and a couple of different Johnnies, not to mention the fact that we also had voice actors reading their letters when we didn't actually hear their phone calls.
yeah, I think that's just amazing. Wow. Um,
Sorry to interrupt, Saul,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
while on that topic, who did the voice for Johnny and Saul during the scene when they're typing their letters?
Oh, great. Well, a buddy of mine named Dave Pate, or David James is his stage name. He's he has one of the best Johnny Cash tribute shows in North America called Big River, starring David James here in Canada. And I met him at a show, and I thought his voice had a similar baritone resonance with Johnny's. Obviously, not. No one could duplicate Johnny's voice. He had a voice as deep as the ocean, didn't he?
Like
But
a
yeah, that
train.
was David James, and he did a wonderful job in that movie. And I hope he'll be working on my new film.
Yeah, how far along are you in the new film?
Well, well, first of all, the film is called, and maybe you can run a clip, is called
Yeah.
When Johnny Cash Got His Moose. And it's about the extraordinary 1961 moose hunt and concert tour of Newfoundland, Canada. And the log line is how a 1961 moose hunt led to Johnny and June, because it was on that tour. And by the way, it was Saul who told Johnny that he felt there were too many guys, too much testosterone on the show, and that he wanted to have a girl singer on the show. And they
Yep.
hired a wonderful country and western star named Rose Maddox. She was the original girl singer. And right in the middle of that Newfoundland tour, Rose Maddox quit. And that's when Saul hired June Carter. So if My Father the Man in Black is the whole story of Johnny and Saul, when Johnny Cash got his moose is the beginning of that story.
I have a video I can play here quick. I can play just a short clip here. 1 second. I don't know if it's going to show up on your Zoom call, but I'm recording this through OBS as well.
Harry Walters was the
Can you hear
director
that?
of wildlife when he called me and asked me if I would be interested in guiding Johnny Cash. I was in Millertown doing research on moose. They picked me up at Lake Ambrose and we proceeded to the camp. We stayed in a logging camp that had closed for the season. The first thing I remember in the morning was Merle Travis asking us to get out of the sleeping bags and enjoy his coffee. Merle Travis was the gem of the crew. He was witty, always had a joke, sang a lot of his songs. Luther was one in a million. You didn't know if he was a millionaire or a bum. Luther was Luther. Wherever he went, he was loved. Not well liked, he was loved. What I remember so well about Gordon Terry was that he was a very beautiful singer. I can't remember ever hearing anyone that I thought was better. And he loved to sing. And my thoughts was that this guy is really going to go to the top. But I learned after that he was famous as a violin player.
All aboard that 4-5 girls, that ain't right. Ain't right. I don't sparkle like a pool of pearls, that ain't right. Ain't right. All the girls are real cute tricks, that ain't right.
So we can continue watching the rest of that clip, but you can find it on YouTube for those watching. It's called
When Johnny Cash got his moose.
When Johnny Cash Got His Moose. And this is about the new movie you're making, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when have you? How long have you been working on it?
Since late last year, I got lucky. I wasn't planning to do another movie about Johnny Cash, but last summer, a guy in Newfoundland called me up and said he had discovered a bunch, 30 new photographs of the moose hunting tour from 1961 by Celebrated Life magazine photographer Richard Frisky. And these photos are unreal. And that led me to interview the hunting guide, who I was pleasantly surprised was still living at 88 years of age with a steel trap memory. And then I called my friend Johnny Western, who was Johnny Cash's longtime MC and featured player who was on that tour. In fact, it was Western who put Johnny and Saul together. And there's another clip that you didn't play that's a lot more interesting about the tour itself. So I hope you all will check it out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love it, man. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And I wish the best for you, man. Like, I love Johnny Cash. I love Walk the Line. But I'm not sure. I think, you know the movie Walk Hard?
Oh, yeah.
I honestly think that's probably one of my favorite comedy movies ever. I
Yeah,
can quote most
brilliant.
lines out of it. Yeah, brilliant is a good way to put it. And by the way, was your dad portrayed in Walk Hard? Do you know?
Yes, as you know, in what we Hollywood types call a composite, much like Walk the Line itself, where all these stories understandably had to be compressed, to fit into a 90-minute or 2-hour film. But yeah, these characters are composites of, my dad, Colonel Tom Parker, Brian Epstein with the Beatles. It's often a Jewish guy, and some of those gags are freaking hilarious.
Yeah, I love it, man. Also, I have something else to say. Do you want to say anything?
Go ahead.
Okay, because this is your interview. I'm just really honored to be talking to you right now. To be honest with you. This was just kind of thrown on me last minute. He told me about it. I'm like, what? No way. So, like I said, I was up till about 3 a.m. making sure all the desktops and everything was connected. Um, so I was watching an interview of, Julie Chadwick.
Yeah,
She wrote the book The Man Who Carried Cash.
right.
You want to explain a little bit how you guys collaborated?
Sure. You know, I'll preface this by saying it's her book. She wrote it.
Sure.
But my movie came first, and she called me up one day and said that she had no idea about this story. She's a Canadian based, and even a lot of Canadians don't know that Cash's manager was a Canadian, let alone that Johnny proposed to June in our hometown of London, Ontario, as a result. But she thought the story was big enough for a book, and she set to write it based on my research and my father's files and things he left behind in that storage locker. And I have to tell you, I think it's better than the movie. I think she
Yeah.
did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she seemed really professional. Um, yeah, she mentioned that there was a lot of she was looking for something that people haven't heard of about him, and so she looked into the Canadian newspapers and I don't know if she looked in the radio stations, but she did some investigation in the Canadian aspect of Johnny Cash.
Right. And to your point, and I don't want to be cute here, but let's face it, guys, we lionize our stars. In death, Johnny has been elevated to some kind of saint. And these movies and books that you find out there, they're great, but they're hagiographies, which means they're biographies that just seek to put a nice spin on the story, or please the family or the estate.
Flattery.
And you know, a, a documentary film, a true documentary film, doesn't pull any punches and just tells the story as it actually happened. You know, One way my movie is true is that I didn't get sued for making it. You've got to present the truth, and if you fudge anywhere, you're going to get murdered.
Yeah.
So, it Walk the Line is fun, and I thought it was a great movie, and I love Joaquin Phoenix in it. And other books and movies are fun too. But if you want to know the real deal, the real story, check out Julie's book or My Father and the Man in Black.
Yeah, from the son of Johnny Cash's manager. I'm so excited. Don't let my demeanor fool you. I kind of got a tech headache going on. So a few other questions here.
I've got one.
Yeah.
So after Luther died in the house fire in August of '68 after their concert at Folsom, who did Saul find to kind of take over the role?
Well, Saul had nothing to do with that call. It was Johnny, but it was again kind of happenstance, an accident. A guy named Bob Wooten, who, as you know, took over that role and nailed that whole boom chicka boom vibe that Luther had, basically showed up at a concert in Oklahoma in 1968. Well, he started showing up in '67, I think. Unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago, but he showed up one day, and Carl Perkins had missed a plane. He was filling in briefly, and Bob Wooten got the job and did a wonderful job with it.
Awesome. Okay.
But the interesting thing is when Saul started booking Johnny Cash, it was Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Two. They didn't even have a drummer, let alone a girl singer. So
Yeah.
over the years, Saul added June Carter and then the Carter family in 1966. And they really turned the Johnny Cash show, and all credit to Johnny and June, their brilliant staging of that kind of troupe, kind of Grand Ole Opry on the road, if you will, really made it sing.
Yeah. Um, I honestly have a million things to say. I'm just trying to choose the most priority things. It kind of reminds when I was a waiter. This isn't too far off topic, but I've been a big fan of Johnny Cash as well as Millions. But when I was a waiter, I dressed in black every day, and the older ladies always called me the Man in Black every day. I don't even think they knew my name. My
Yeah,
cousin.
I wear a lot of black myself, and maybe subconsciously there's something about Johnny there. I was 9 months old on my first Johnny Cash tour. But when you ask me about Johnny, I really, from personal experience, can only speak to what a kid witnessed, because I think I was going on 10 years old when my dad retired. But he was a wonderfully warm guy, as tall as a tree. And he had the presence of a movie star. Even as a kid, it was unmistakable. When he walked into a room, every head turned. But he was also the kind of guy who would get down on his knee to talk to a kid eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I really did love the guy.
That reminds me of my grandma. She was a teacher, and just she talked to us the same way from the time we were kids to adults. I mean, I don't remember her tone of voice ever changing.
Right.
So that's a sign of a good character, and that's probably how he got famous.
I agree. Johnny is many things, and believe me, I can find a lot to criticize, but he was he meant well, and he always treated people well.
Mm.
I would like to. I don't think my mic is
Oh,
live.
my cousin would like to say. Let me turn up his mic here. Okay, so I don't see you showing up, John.
It's okay.
I can hear him.
Oh, you can hear him? That's weird. It's not showing up on my interface. Okay, you can hear him good though. All right. Let me just tell you something short about him. So his dad is actually a photographer. He's done photography for National Geographic and done kind of little bit of film work. He's not a filmmaker, but so John is. That's one of the reasons I invited him in, is because he's kind of familiar with it.
Shoot.
Yeah. So I want to bring this actually on the subject of you. Dude, I'm really quiet.
Well, he can hear you.
Okay, I want to bring it on the subject of you. So you're a filmmaker. I saw you've done a couple shows and you've done a couple movies. Tell me, how long have you been in the filmmaking business? Have you been in it? Have you been interested in it from a young age?
Yeah, I was. I've been in film and television from the beginning. I started out as a producer on live award shows uh, at the CBC in Canada, in Toronto. I was a producer on the NHL awards for many years. And then the actor Alan Thicke, if you remember the show Growing Pains,
Mm.
invited me to move to Los Angeles to work on the last season of that show. And then I worked on shows on both sides of the border. But it wasn't until many years later that I made my first film, which was My Father and the Man in Black. And this one now is my second.
Nice. When I googled you, they also had a couple TV shows. That's you did those as well.
Yeah, but I was never the top guy. I was usually the associate producer or the coordinating producer. Um, I never uh, ran the show until the last couple of years.
That makes sense. You were saying that your brother was you played your father at some point. Did everybody in your family end up coming into the music or the entertainment industry?
Yes and no. My cousin David, the brother of the guy who played my father in the movie, discovered Howie Mandel and Jim Carrey and managed each of them to a level in Hollywood where they were poached by bigger and stronger agents. So yeah, it kind of runs in the family.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, this is pretty much that's the same story here as most of us with a photographer as a father. It's since you grow up around it, you learn it.
Yeah, yeah. I was 10 years old when my dad retired, so it wasn't like anybody gave me a job out of nepotism, but the experience growing up in the music business with Johnny Cash definitely made a huge impression on me.
For sure. Um, Going to do a little dark way. You know how I remember you were saying that in Canada now they have assistant suicide. That was actually really interesting. I remember them, and I remember in America them talking about that. My stepfather actually.
Hey, John, you want to just plug your mic directly into that, maybe? If to finish what you're saying first.
Yeah, so
Sorry about that.
it's good. My stepfather also took his own life, and I'm not sure exactly why your father did, but you're saying his health is going down, and that's the same story. His vision was going out, his liver was failing, and he didn't want to live being taken care of by somebody else.
I heard of Australia doing that actually. Like few years, like 10 years ago, this guy was like starting this company, assisted suicide. It's pretty amazing. That's something.
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, there's a lot of countries do it, and I am a big believer in it, and yeah, a lot of people don't want to become a burden on their families, and if they have a health issue that won't resolve and they're of a certain age, then that's an option, and it's an option I'm definitely going to consider.
I would have much rather that because more often than not, it's the family that has to clean up the mess afterwards, and I don't mean
Exactly.
mentally. I mean actually physically clean up the mess, and that's really it was not pleasant. I'll say.
Yeah, that. Yeah, what happened to your
I don't want, yeah,
stepdad?
exactly. I don't want to go into detail with it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm completely on board with that. I'm actually glad to hear that about Canada.
So, yeah, Mike or John, for some reason your mic isn't reading. I don't. Is your mic turned on? Can you adjust the settings there?
Yeah, I was looking at it now.
Okay, you're probably just hearing the ambience. But yeah, so that's really what sparked your journey down this path of making these documentaries, right? When that
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is the truth. The very first piece of audio I heard in that storage locker on an old reel-to-reel machine was my father talking about the day Johnny overdosed in Toronto in March 1966. And he was the same age, telling that story into his audio diary as I was hearing it. And so it's
hmm,
like your parent, your father talking to you across the years.
yeah,
Uh, you get to meet these people before they became your parents
yeah,
and see them as a man or a woman instead of, that father you detested or wanted to get away from when you were a teenager.
an idol. Yeah, I think that's definitely interesting. So you that helped with the reconciliation process because you guys didn't have the greatest relationship.
Right.
Yeah, that's that's honestly one of my favorite parts. And yeah, we talked about this earlier, but your dad was a Jewish atheist.
Right.
I think that's kind of ironic. So, oh, I also heard it was a 2012 interview, and it was during the international premiere in England of your first one. I
Mhm.
can't remember the guy didn't introduce himself, but he asked you. I thought it was pretty funny. He's like, "How do you make a Canadian apologize?"
I can't remember. What's the punchline?
You step on his foot.
That's true.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love
sorry, but
I love the stigma. I love the stereotypes of Canada. Like you try to insult them, all you're doing is giving them compliments.
they're like Mormon missionaries, which are from my have really helped us out a lot getting things going. Um,
I have one. So as you said in the beginning of your My Father and the Man in Black, you followed in your father's footsteps as a talent agent. Who did you
Yeah.
all manage?
Well, I didn't manage. I worked at the venerable William Morris Agency in Beverly Hills, and then I started my own company in Los Angeles called the Hollywood Madison Group. And what we did basically is specialize in celebrity endorsements. We worked for the company, the brand, that wanted to hire a celebrity that would speak to, its product's demographics. But here's a funny story. A couple of years after I started that company, they did an article about it in the LA Times, and my phone rang, and it was Lou Robin And those of you who are really into Cashverse know that Lou Robin is the manager who took over after my father retired. And he was calling me to congratulate me and to ask me to lunch and to discuss whether I had any opportunities for Mr. Cash. So talk about coming full circle.
Yeah, life has a way of doing that, going full circle. Man, this is good stuff, man. I don't know how much time you have. Um,
I'm all yours.
okay, cool. Um, it's just an honor to talk to somebody like you as well because I'm in the music industry and I've been helping musicians get started, and that's actually what we did last week. And we do this thing called Open Jam, and we just create a space for anybody to come play and just kind of pay it forward and help things. And that's really helped things go full circle is actually being of service. And I think it's just kind of coincidental that Hopkins, he's been wanting to play, and we get him up on stage a little bit and play with him, and then you end up replying to a message he sent you last year, was it?
Yeah, over Facebook.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny how things happen like that, and it just gets thrown on us. And um, is there anything else you want to talk about the documentary of what you want anybody to know? Because I'm gonna share this with everybody I know. So if there's anything about the documentary you want people to know, you can go ahead.
Cheers, man. I'm very excited about it. And what I want people to know is they're invited. You're all invited. This is happening in Newfoundland, of course, after COVID, because the Canadian border is closed at the moment. But when those travel restrictions lift, and after we've done the rest of our shooting in Newfoundland, we're going to have a big party in Newfoundland where, Johnny Cash toured and where the Moose Hunt happened in the form of a concert, a Johnny Cash tribute show, and to premiere the film. And at the event, we're going to have the people in the film, including the gentleman Heman Whalen, who was Johnny's hunting guide, and Johnny Western, who was the MC and featured player on that tour, and for many years later. And members of the Holiff family are invited, the Cash family are invited, and it's going to be a real jam.
That's awesome. You don't know when that's going to be. It's just going to be after the borders lift.
Yeah, we're shooting for fall 2022 for the premiere, but we're going to be there a couple of times before then doing more shooting.
Oh, so this is going to be included in the documentary?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Have you kept in touch with the Cash family much?
Yes and no. I mean, I have all the kids on my mailing list, and every time I do something, even some of the crazier shit, like managing Johnny Cash as an atheist talks and so on, I send them all the information to keep them, informed about what's going on. In terms of, I'm Facebook friends with Kathy Cash and Roseanne Cash, but no, not close relationships by any means.
Yeah.
Did you ever? Sorry, Trevor.
No, go ahead.
Did you ever get to talk to Vivian?
No, that was before my time. I mean, I was born in 65 and they divorced in 67. But my mother was very friendly with Vivian. And I'd like to recommend everybody out there see the new movie, My Darling Vivian, produced by her and Johnny's grandson. It's a fantastic movie. And again, it's another opportunity for you to see the real deal as opposed to the way Vivian was portrayed in Walk the Line, which, according to my mother, was not accurate nor favorable.
Yeah. Yeah, I love documentaries for the realism of it. I'm a huge documentary fan. That's like crack cocaine for me. I've watched a lot of I've watched documentaries on Johnny Cash, Elvis, and all of them and how they got along. And so I love it. I was thinking of actually doing a documentary show here at the Vault. It's an art center and it's a venue as well. It's just like a coffee shop art center. And a few years ago, especially before COVID, we would do movies and stuff. But documentaries are, I can't remember how much it is to play a documentary. Um,
The rights.
for the rights to play it.
A couple $100.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth it, especially after this interview. Just kind of inviting everybody together and and watching uh, My Father and the Man in Black, the one you made, and just kind of going over some things. I think that'd be an awesome
And My
thing to do.
Darling Vivian.
And My Darling Vivian, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
you know, that's a very cool idea. And with your tech savvy, you could bring the filmmakers in for a Q&A by video conference
yeah,
after the film.
that'd be fantastic. That's a great
That'd
idea.
be crazy.
Yeah,
Awesome. I mean,
yeah, that'd be insane, man. No, that's awesome. Definitely consider that. Um, yeah, we'll worry about the tech when we get there. Usually just solves itself. Really cool. Ah, man, I was gonna say something. I forgot what it is.
So, have you actually gotten to visit like the House of Cash, the Opry, and places like that?
Yeah, but back when I was a kid, I remember going to Nashville many times and to the house in Hendersonville many times. I remember Reba, Johnny's sister, who basically managed the House of Cash at the time, the physical location, the museum. It became a museum later. And she taught me how to make a paper airplane. And she basically kept me out of trouble and busy while my dad and Johnny were in meetings. And I have a very vivid memory of playing with John Carter at their place by the lake. His parents had just given him a Snoopy that must have been 6 feet tall. It was the biggest Snoopy I had ever seen. It was so big, in my memory, we could climb up its back and use its nose as a diving board. So, yeah, we made a lot of trips to Nashville as kids and a lot of trips, on tour in Florida and on movie sets in Arizona and California. So, I was very, very lucky, especially for a Canadian kid from a small town in southern Ontario, to come back to school after one of those trips and knowing how to, you know, um, quick, quick holster a gun and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It was a lot of fun.
So you really got a taste of the limelight, even as 10 years old. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
you could say that, sure. And then of course I ended up living in Hollywood for about 20 years. So I've had my fill of that now.
Yeah, I suppose.
So
So,
did you, sorry, did you make your start on your own, or did you work under a couple producers beforehand?
Oh, I worked under a bunch of producers. I worked my way up from production coordinator to supervising producer, and then eventually started producing my own things, infomercials, corporate videos, and then ultimate and a couple of commercials, and then ultimately a couple of films.
All right. Whenever you directed, you know, when you direct your films, how involved are you? Are you only writing the scripts and then you hire other people to do other jobs, or are you extremely involved where you're creating the camera angles, you're creating the script, you're creating the storylines, locations? Are you doing all that, or how involved are you?
That's a good question, and it's an object lesson for me as to what not to do.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, you probably read that if you want to make a movie, never uh, let it be the first thing you do. Make a short film first.
Yeah.
Don't just start with a feature film. And by the way, I shot 35 millimeter film. This wasn't some kind of video. It was film on a soundstage in Toronto. But I made that obvious mistake of not having made a short film first. And on top of that, and more directly in answer to your question, I did just about everything. I mean, I wrote, I directed, I produced, I handled the accounting, the books.
Yeah.
I did way, way too much. And so, what I learned from that experience, because I think it hurt the movie, that on this one, I'm not going to be chief cook and bottle washer. I'm going to focus on writing and directing.
Honestly, that was going to be my next
Yeah.
question: is what is your plan in the next time? What did you learn? So yeah, that's great. I'm glad you answered it in that way because I've learned. I tried owning my own construction company a couple years back, and I did the same thing where I was trying to do everything and overworked myself, and it ended up okay. But if I ever did it again, I will definitely trust people a lot
Yeah.
more and give them responsibility
Tru-
that I did not
Yep,
before.
trust, leadership, and teamwork truly does make the dream work. I mean, you look at the credits of any movie. There's hundreds,
Thousands. Yeah.
even thousands of people involved in these. It's not just the director.
Right. And don't forget that my first film was, and some may disagree, but in my opinion, the toughest kind of film to make out there. And that's a first person story where you're basically saying, I, me. And, people don't want to spend 90 minutes in a movie theater listening to you complain about your childhood and cry in your pillow for
Hmm.
12 bucks or 15 bucks. But first person stories are the hardest to pull off, and audiences are most resistant to, unlike, say, autobiographies or what have you. So, yeah, those of you out there planning your first film, make a short first. And, if you're going to make a first person movie, beware.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the first person movie perspective.
So,
I
when it came to your, sorry, Trevor,
no.
when it came to when you first walked into that storage unit of your dad's, what was the feeling like what were you feeling about walking into that and seeing all that?
Well, thank you. It's a great question. Like documentaries versus Hollywood films like Walk the Line, reality is not necessarily as sexy as fiction. But I didn't go there expecting to find what I did. My mother had told me that my father had hung on to this storage locker for years and that she wanted to get rid of it. And so it was like a chore for me. It was an errand. And I opened it up, and the first thing I saw was an old vacuum cleaner on the floor. So it didn't exactly have a X marks the spot. But as soon as I saw that most of it were cartons and cartons, bankers boxes of files marked, Johnny Cash, I thought, shit, this looks kind of interesting. And then when I opened one of them and found it was full of audio tape, I couldn't believe it. And it was quarter-inch tape, and he happened to have stored his old reel-to-reel machine in there, because if he hadn't, I don't know where I would have been able to play this back.
I was just about to ask,
And
did you have the
I,
equipment to play it? But yeah,
yeah, I was just dumbfounded when I heard it. And I spent most of my time in that locker because my mother had just lost her husband. I didn't want to bring all Saul's shit home, and unbox the past right in front of her. So I spent a lot of time in there first, going through the material before breaking it out and deciding to try to put a story together. But speaking of that, you got to understand that it didn't come with directions. In fact, most of these pieces of paper or boxes didn't even have dates on it. It was like a giant jigsaw puzzle that you kind of had to lay out all over the floors and put in order and try to remember when June came into the picture, Vivian, and this kind of bit. And so it really did take, let's see, it took, yeah, 7 years to make this film.
wow.
Yeah, it's all about the long term. With enough baby steps and patience, you can do anything.
Yeah, you don't do something like this for the money. This is not like cashing in. If my dad was that kind of guy, he would have written a tell-all book when he was alive. There was no plan to, make a fortune off this stuff. It was really about telling the story.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
I love
sorry,
talk.
Trevor.
Yeah, no, yeah, you stepped on my foot. So, uh, but I just love talking to people that understand that it's not about the money. It is obviously money has something to do with it, but if you put money first, you're not going to get it. It's a lot like love. All right, go ahead.
So another kind of one is I know Johnny did a TV show in the early '70s called "This Is Your Life." Was Saul ever a part of that as well?
Yes and no. I don't think it was the 70s. I think it was before that, much before that. Um, but Saul was chiefly responsible for the Johnny Cash show on ABC. Speaking of shows, you got to remember in the 1960s, Johnny Cash was persona non grata. He had a bad reputation. Um, his nickname in the business was Johnny No Show Cash. And when he was arrested in El Paso in 1965, nobody would touch him. In fact, my father had to petition the judge in El Paso to release Johnny into my father's, custody, as it were, to allow him to travel outside the continental limits of the United States while on bond. So it was a good thing Johnny had a Canadian manager who could bring him to Canada and get him work across the country until things calmed down. But TV people didn't want anything to do with him as a consequence. So my dad set up the first Johnny Cash show, a special called O'Keefe Presents Johnny Cash in Toronto, believe it or not, 2 weeks after Folsom Prison, in 1968. And that show was so good and so beautifully done that it spawned the ABC show, the Johnny Cash show. In fact, a lot of the same people who did that show in Toronto did the Johnny Cash show that you come to know and love.
Man,
That's just wonderful.
Johnny Cash had like you just said, we could say great things all day, but like the no-show aspect of Johnny Cash. He actually had many times to fail in his career and had many opportunities to not succeed in the end. Your dad must have been a great manager to have stuck through that the entire time, and the fact that we still know his name today as Johnny. The fact that we still know Johnny's name today is very impressive on your dad's part, I have to say.
Well, thank you for saying that. And of course, as his son, I'd like to think so. But having said that, when it comes to facts and what I found in that storage locker, there was a clear indication that that Saul uh, was started this whole thing off, this image that we come to know and love, because it was Saul's plan, his idea, his drive to position Johnny away from the country and Western label. He marketed Johnny Cash as unique. And some of those branding aspects of Johnny Cash, the man in black, are how we know Johnny Cash today. But when the two men first met, Johnny Cash actually had a white suit and a white cowboy hat at one point. So, he everybody has to evolve in a career. So the Johnny Cash we know today was part of a group effort, a lot of people behind the scenes.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think that has to go with every celebrity, for the most part, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, Johnny Cash is like the product of a collaborative effort. Yeah, I watched that they kind of clicked, like they had a lot in common, like they just synced up really well. And that's why he became like they basically signed like they made the management agreement by handshake and
Yeah, and
basically.
doesn't that tell you a lot about these guys?
Yeah.
I mean, who today shakes hands on a deal like that?
Yeah. But
Today,
ironically that's what it
Life-changing
takes.
deal. Yeah.
That's what it takes to do something like that. You have to have the integrity and the honor and the character, because what's a piece of paper? What's an
right?
agreement? It could be a headache in court.
And the vision.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it takes one to know one. So that's the handshake should come first, and then
And I'll tell you something else, and this might not please a lot of people out there, but I also give my father the same credit for when he quit Johnny Cash. I mean, take it from me, having spent 20 years in Hollywood, managers don't quit superstars, they get fired. Uh, managers, people in Hollywood, they don't walk away for millions of dollars.
yeah,
Uh, they'll sell their soul before they walk away for millions of dollars. So I give my dad a lot of credit
yeah, that's
because
impressive.
he it wasn't his it wasn't his truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's an irony to that. And like that was like Johnny Cash. He was like a rock star. He was like one of the. He was like hear about rock stars, '80s hair bands and stuff, but like Johnny Cash was the hair band of his day. You could say.
Right, he was destroying hotel rooms way
Yeah,
before Led Zeppelin.
yeah, yeah, and Elvis and all them.
Yeah, he was there at the same time.
Yeah.
Elvis was not the angel.
So there's more of a spirit to it rather than an image. So
Since you mentioned Elvis, my mom actually says we're somehow related to him. He's like a third or fourth cousin, actually.
Oh, cool.
oh yeah,
Cool.
it may be. I'm sure.
Well,
Sure,
somehow
he
he
may have gotten around quite a bit back
well,
in
Have
the
you
day.
guys ever heard that story about Elvis shooting a TV set to bits in a hotel room?
I know he
haven't.
carried a gun around with him.
Yeah, and I know he's got the reputation of doing something like that, but no, I've never heard this story.
Okay, well, you know that Johnny and Elvis were friends and rivals.
Yep.
My father obviously knew Elvis as well, and the Colonel. But in 1972, when they showed up in Las Vegas at the Hilton for a week of shows, they took over a hotel room that Elvis had just left. And they walked in and the TV set was blown to bits.
Oh, jeez.
He probably saw something on TV he didn't like, I assume. Probably the news or his own show. Yeah, I know he did. He carried a gun around with him. I know that.
Yeah, even
You have to be. You can't be that famous. I mean, I'm sure there's people
well,
that
he
do
was
not
the
like him.
original- Well, I guess Frank Sinatra was like he could be the first superstar, but I think Elvis was the first actual superstar, like real fame.
Yeah,
Well,
commercialized.
here's some inside dope for you that's not in any book. Johnny carried guns at times. And in 1964, I believe, he was booked on The Tonight Show, which at the time was taping in New York City. And he showed up to the taping with a gun in his bag. And the talent coordinator saw the gun in his bag and they asked him to leave.
Oh.
But he's the talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like nobody needs you that badly.
So
Sorry, Trevor.
go ahead.
Was your dad, or did Johnny or Saul, or did both of them kind of help create Johnny's Man in Black image?
Well, that's a great question. And, people out there will swear that the answer is this or that. The way Johnny told the story, and by the way, I preface this by saying that one of Johnny's favorite sayings was, "Why let the truth get in the way of a good story?" So you always have to question these stories. But the way he told it was he went to get, actually, my father took all four guys. By then, W.S. Fluke Holland was with the band, 1964, Los Angeles, or Nashville, to get a whole new wardrobe. And the plan was to get four different suits for each guy in four different colors. And when they got there, the guy, purportedly, according to my father, said, we're all out of everything but black. And so Cash said, then make all mine black. But if you listen to Johnny Cash, he'll tell you that, he wore it on purpose and for the downtrodden and all the myth and legend that's grown around that aspect of his persona.
Yeah.
But if you believe my dad, it was basically an accident.
That's cool. Oh, I had something. Go ahead.
Um, let me think. I honestly, I'm just so excited about this interview, man. This is all good stuff. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, really. Do you guys have any other questions? It's been about an hour. I mean,
Yeah, so I know we're doing a podcast right now. I want to be a little selfish and plug my own. I also have a podcast, and I would really love to interview personally about like more into depth with your filmmaking, producing, your
Sure,
journey on that. So
sure,
I won't worry about connecting, like literally getting your number right this second. But before the end of the conversation, I would really like to get into touch with you for a little
sure.
follow up. But yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I remember what I was about to say is you were saying how what was the saying? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right.
That fits perfectly to a ballot writer. Like to somebody
Yeah.
writing ballots, I guess that like you'd have to abide by that rule.
Yeah, and that's part of Cash's genius too. I mean, so much of this is legend, really. I
Yeah.
mean, when you really strip everything away and look at the facts, it's quite a different story.
Actually, yeah, I'm sure most documentaries are gonna be that way. Where
Like, I'll give you one example. Do you guys remember the story he told about how he had hit rock bottom, and crawled into Nickajack Cave in Tennessee,
yeah,
hoping to die?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he heard God tell him to go on, and he crawled back out, and there was Mother Maybell in June with a picnic basket. Well,
wow.
Nickajack Cave was flooded uh, at the time. So a lot of these stories are, myth making.
Yeah,
Showmanship.
that's
Just
better. Yeah, that's a better word. Showmanship.
yeah, that's the thing about that's one thing I struggle with as an entertainer is getting on stage and remaining truthful, but also kind of putting on a show and not trying to exaggerate, finding that balance and not trying to be uncanny, trying to be authentic and a showman at the same time. But if you
It's
find that if yeah, and that's what I love about documentaries. To me, I love documentaries. I mean, I think documentaries are exciting to watch because of the reality of it. So it's like really finding that balance between authenticity and a real purpose and a real cause. Then you don't really have to worry about the showmanship aspect or polishing things up because it just takes on a life of its own.
See, I used to watch a lot of documentaries, and these days, I think documentaries are mostly they're too slow moving, and they repeat themselves too many times. Sometimes,
Oh, some of them do. Yeah.
sometimes they add filler type like content, but I really like podcasts nowadays. Like podcasts, that seems where the real information, like it seems more authentic for the most part, and it's a lot more personal. You get time to actually speak and everything. So I think podcasts would be the new documentaries, but they got their separate reasons and niches.
That's a good point.
So, when you took and finished with My Father and the Man in Black, did you expect the success of it, or?
Uh, I don't know what I expected, frankly. It's a real challenge as a first person documentary, and coming out of Canada. But we were lucky in many respects. The film, uh, was in movie theaters in England and in the United States, and on television around the world. So, um, for a documentary, it did quite well, and I was thrilled. Um, but again, it's a tough way to make a living. You have to really be passionate and want to tell a story to invest yourself like that. But like uh, the other gentleman was saying a moment ago, it's also liberating, when you don't have to bullshit and dress up everything in artifice. When you're trying to just tell a story passionately about the truth, it's very liberating.
Almost like a pastor in a church. It's like that's, I I personally like going to church, and the passion that they speak of. I mean, it's not a show. They really feel it. They whether you agree with it or not, they believe it, and they really feel what they're preaching.
Yeah, before we wrap this up, for the audience watching, where can they find you online? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have a website? And if you have any type of like Patreon or donation type things, where could they help you out?
Thank you. I don't have any of those donation things, but I do have, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. Again, the name is Jonathan Holiff, or the movie When Johnny Cash Got His Moose. And if you want to see my other movie, My Father the Man in Black, you will find it everywhere except Netflix. So iTunes,
That's the
Amazon,
next step.
everywhere you can find a movie streaming, you'll find it.
Yeah, I actually
Wonderful.
did a small search online during the podcast, and you're absolutely right. That's a very known documentary.
No.
One other I have is like you said in the movie, your father kind of helped him to when he for on Folsom kind of bring about the his famous saying of "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Was that all Saul or a combination?
No, and let me just parse that. What I said earlier was that it was Saul who talked Johnny into switching producers because Johnny was swinging and missing, totally not connecting, and Saul pressed him to work with Bob Johnston, and it was Bob Johnston who opened the gates to Folsom. In other words, it was Bob Johnston who gave the okay, or pardon me, got the okay from Columbia Records to record the show at Folsom. But it was Johnston, not my dad, who said to Johnny, instead of just coming out and starting to play, because we don't have an MC, because we don't have someone to introduce you, maybe you could just say, my name is Johnny Cash before you start. And that's what Cash did. He came out and said, hello, my name is Johnny Cash. And it stuck.
It must have really stuck because Jonathan over here during Open Jam last week when he played, he actually used that intro before he played.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Cash.
You have to say the intro, and then he started playing.
Yeah, there's nothing like that Folsom Prison LP. It's just amazing. Although, again, if you're into truth and read a little bit about the show, they actually sweetened it, meaning when he says certain things, like shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, and you hear the convicts go wild. They actually didn't go wild. They went wild in another part of the show, and they copied and pasted it to that point in the record.
I love that.
So there's a lot of really interesting stories behind that, and of course, a year later, my dad set up the San Quentin show, which begat A Boy Named Sue, which was a hell of a record.
That's my favorite song.
Teddy Roosevelt did that in his speech. He hired people to go in the crowd and start cheering whenever he would speak, and it just spread the cheer.
Yeah, it was the
I used to work on sitcoms, and if you ever saw a sitcom, you have a lot of canned laughter, I know, but there are live audiences too, and there's always someone or a couple of us in the back getting the audience going.
Yeah, I've seen behind the camera, like towards the audience, someone will actually hold up a sign, laugh or laughter, or like they'll actually like
applause.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll hold up signs to let the audience know what to do at the moment.
We're a bunch of lemmings.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it works. We love it. But yeah, I'm actually done with questions, so I'm going to leave the rest of it to these two. But it was my name is Jonathan Hobart, and I'm the one that wants to get you on my podcast, and it was really good talking with you, Jonathan.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll let you go. Thanks.
So, what is your favorite of Johnny's songs?
My favorite, that's a great question. I actually have two. And one of them, which is kind of hilarious if you know me, is a spiritual, because I'm not religious, but Were You There? You know, those haunting um, backgrounds by Anita Carter. Were You There When They Crucified My Lord? It's such a beautiful, haunting song. And I like Cocaine Blues.
Jesus and cocaine.
Yeah,
It's Johnny Cash.
Yeah. Rock and roll Jesus.
there you go.
Yeah.
So, when Fluke Holland joined, was that did Saul find him, or was he with someone else before Johnny, or anything like that?
You know, that's a really interesting story because guess who Fluke was drumming for at the time? A guy named Carl Perkins, which most of you know was a famous singer who wrote Blue Suede Shoes covered by Elvis Presley. And so Fluke was touring with Carl. My dad was also promoting those shows, and they crossed paths a lot. Now, who said what to whom, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that my father said, Look, Johnny, if you want me to manage you, I want to put you on the big stages, Carnegie Hall in New York, the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. And we need a bigger sound. We need a drummer. We need a girl singer. And that's when that all started. Hello?
Wow, that is just wow.
He's Hopkins is a really big fan of Johnny Cash, and you know, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having this meeting right now. And I just want to, you know, thank you for that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
showed
no
me your
problem.
phone. His whole album is Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
Like he
I've
loves.
got parts of his San Quentin album. One from his first one that he did for gospel, which is the song. I'm trying to remember what it is. It was a good one. I don't remember what it is off the top of
The
my
one
head.
about Greystone Chapel
No, it's
or Dark as a Dungeon?
no, it's I gotta find it because I don't remember what it is for the life of me.
By the
It's,
way, I've got a picture of my dad, Johnny and June here, in case your audience
Oh no,
Oh, it's not showing.
not showing up.
You might have to
Well,
get rid of the background momentarily, but
well, you guys can always. I don't know if this is live to tape. You're going to
actually,
edit.
yeah, we can.
He can send it. Yeah.
So you grab all these pictures off my pages.
I'll just go to your Facebook and then
And the
screen
song-
and share the screen.
by the way, was the old account from his hip
I'm not
one.
familiar with that one.
It's the one I love myself of his hymns.
Very cool.
But I also have his Madison Square Garden concert, the Legacy edition they released of his Live at Folsom one.
What is your favorite Johnny Cash performance? As in, for example, my favorite all time, and this is above the two songs you asked me about, is his performance of Big River on Star Route USA 1961. He's all in black. He's bringing the guitar up like a shotgun.
Oh yeah.
Big River, that is my all-time favorite Johnny Cash performance.
I'd have to say for me, it's got to be Folsom, because it was the first one I ever heard. Was his live performance of Folsom.
Yeah.
Jarvis Street Gang. I'm going through your albums right now of your dad. Let me just go ahead and share here. Can you see that?
Yeah, but that's a personal album, meaning there's no Johnny and Saul there. But if you go to my Facebook page,
Oh, your page.
yes, go to the main page.
So is this a
No,
page?
that's it. Just go to posts, or yeah, there you go. So there's the trailer at the top, and there's me and Johnny on the left.
Right here?
Yep, that's me and Johnny in Nashville in 1973.
That is a good picture.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you got your story. That's crazy. That's so cool. Are there any other pictures on here?
Yeah, just keep scrolling down.
Okay. Yeah, you got the. Yeah, this is Julie Hawkins, or
Chadwick.
Chadwick, sorry. I watched that earlier. She's the one who wrote the book, The Man Who Carried Cash, about your dad. And
Right.
Johnny Cash. She's the one who said that. I think it was her. I watched a few of them, how they had just synced up and how well they got along. And basically both they related over they had problems with their dad.
Right.
And they connected because back then men weren't allowed to express their feelings.
Hey, Trevor, keep scrolling down for a second. You'll see Johnny at the mic. Keep going. Keep going.
Right here?
That's from the tour. That's from the new film. Check out that photo. It's amazing.
Let me expand it here. Check
That's
out.
just
Wow.
bare bones. I think Fluke Holland just had that snare drum and that was it. There's
Yeah, bare bones.
By the way, did you hear about Fluke and what happened just recent?
well, that he passed away.
Yeah,
Is that?
that's
Yeah.
it. May
Yeah,
he
it was
rest in peace.
very sorry to hear that. He was
Yeah.
a great guy and a good friend. There's Vivian,
Yeah.
and that's about that new movie, My Darling Vivian.
Oh, I like that then. I'll open that in a new tab and check that out. Oh, and this is that's the guy that sang for Johnny Cash when he
Right.
couldn't sing, right?
Johnny Western.
Right. That's
Yeah.
Johnny Western. He lives in Arizona now, and he's got great stories, and he's a really important part of the new movie.
Yeah, he was talking about he was in that video that we watched earlier. He talked about when Johnny was doing some pills and stuff and he couldn't sing and so he'd step in for him.
Right. That, by the way, is a wrestling ring in Gander, Newfoundland.
Perfect. I have to consider that for future shows and on a wrestling ring.
Yeah. That's
that
me
you?
and my dad and Johnny. And if you
That would bring me to the YouTube page, I'm sure. Our video, yeah.
Well, you're
I was just
listening
going
to
to say, if you
Boomer.
keep scrolling down, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, no, stop. Go back to June. Can you play that? It's
Yeah.
just a minute long. This is called Introducing June Carter. Unmute.
Yeah.
In my at late 61, we played the Big D in Dallas, Texas. And my manager, Saul Holiff, said, we need a girl singer on the show. They want more than just junior band. I said, we'll get one. He said, what do you think about June Carter? And I said, I've always been a fan of hers. And I had, I loved her work. I said, get her if you can. So we booked June Carter on the Big D at Dallas, and then that night, my manager asked her if she'd work the next tour with us.
And that was your dad.
Yeah, it isn't that a kicker?
Yeah.
Was that his dad talking?
No, that was Johnny
That's
Cash.
I was
John
gonna say,
telling the
I was gonna say,
story.
man, that sounded like Johnny. All right, never mind.
Yeah.
So when did the Statler brothers come into the picture?
1964. Here's another funny story. Johnny was unable to attend a recording, and so rather than give away the studio, the Statler brothers stepped in and recorded "Flowers on the Wall," which was a monster hit.
Hmm.
You know that their music was made popular again by Quentin Tarantino. It was in the soundtrack of his movie.
Wow.
Yeah. This is just overwhelming how awesome this is.
Trevor,
Is there
do you know what these are?
what's that?
What are these?
Those are my cousin John's asking what the
So
things on the mic stands are.
Yeah, on the bike, on the background, in your background, there's microphones, and each microphone looks like, is that a compressor attached to it?
Dude, I'm sorry, man. It's a background. It's covering my dirty laundry.
Oh no! Okay, I got it. Okay, I got you. I'm looking at the equipment. It's actually something I've
he's
never
got
seen before. But
he's got a little bit of ADD. It's all good. Yeah. Are there any other pictures or videos while we have the desktop available here that you want to show?
There are tons, man. Maybe we could do this another time, and you know, I could get everything to you in advance so you'd have it all.
No, that's a great idea. Actually, I would love to meet again and talk about this, especially after getting the word out. After this meeting, we would like to maybe go live on Facebook as well. Would you be interested in that?
Totally.
Awesome, cool. Well, I suppose we can just wrap it up then. Does anybody else have anything else you want to say?
I'm good. Thank you, Jonathan, by the way.
Thank you, guys. That was fun.
Yeah. I fully support your work. And
same here.
Yeah. And we're looking forward to the get-together the fall of 2022. I'm going to have to I'll have to get my passport now.
You and me both.
See you in Newfoundland. It's going to be fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Cheers.
You too.
Bye for now.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, great connect, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.